is the solution Canadian bank reformers are presenting that would solve this current monetary issue?
Well, we're proposing a solution that was put together by a whole group of interested Canadians a couple of years ago, under which the Bank of Canada would create very large sums of debt-free money and make it available to the federal government. The amount we're suggesting is $150 billion a year for 7 years. And that is to accomplish several things. One, to provide the money necessary to get the system up and running after all of this anemic growth. And secondly, to change the balance of power between a very small group of very, very rich bankers who are running the world at the present time and giving some of that power back to the people. Because at the moment we don't have power, they have the power. And if we did this for 7 years, it would change the balance of power. It would allow us to do all of the infrastructure projects that need to be done. And we wouldn't have to borrow the money as the government is proposing. That is, in my opinion, just absolute nonsense, if I may say so, because we've done it before and we can do it again. But we have to have money available, and that would make the money available. And then the great benefit, of course, is we don't have to pay it back. And actually, as the economy grew, and because this is a lot of money we're talking about creating in 7 years, it would be possible to actually pay down some of the existing debt. And that would make it easier too, because then we could reduce taxes a little bit and use the money that we otherwise would have to pay for interest to do something useful, beautify our country.
How would all Canadians benefit if the new social contract between the government and the people of Canada was adopted as Canada's monetary policy?
Well, the new social contract between the government and people of Canada, which allows for the Bank of Canada to create a lot of money and make it available to the government to split 50-50 with the provinces and territories, so that you can make fast decisions and you don't have to have everyone having 3 people approve everything. It would mean so much, because the whole situation would change. It would be like going from dark night to brilliant day, like the sun coming up through the darkness. Because all of a sudden, all of those areas that need attention, that have been underfunded for decades, really, underfunding for healthcare and education, resulting in high tuition fees, which are very discouraging for young people, and especially if you have to borrow the money and pay interest on it. And then a lot of wonderful ideas for new hospitals and new approaches of various kinds would be technically possible, because the money would be there to make it happen if they were approved. And so as far as I'm concerned, it would be the best thing that has happened to Canada in decades, going back about 45 years. And it would be, in my opinion, the nearest thing to a miracle that people would have ever seen.
Great. And then how can Canadian citizens help our government adopt the new social contract between the government and the people of Canada as our country's monetary policy?
Well, I think they have to take an interest. This is a subject where most people's eyes just glaze over. If you start talking about money and banking and all of this sort of thing, they say, well, let's get on to the next subject, because I've got a mortgage to pay and I've got food to buy and I'm busy and I don't know anything about that and I think it's complicated and I really don't want to take time off to find out about it. So they have to be, I think, informed that, well, hey, you may not have time to listen to this, but it has more effect on your future and your career than just anything else that's likely to happen. So you have to stop and you have to get the information, and then you have to contact the government and say, we want this done, and we want it done now. We don't want any further procrastination, because we've waited long enough. We've waited 9 years for something to happen, and all you're offering us is borrowing money from the richest families in the whole world, which puts us further in debt and creates future problems for us. And you're proposing to sell off some of our assets for peanuts, as little as 5 cents on the dollar. And that isn't right, because they're our assets, and you shouldn't make them available to these ultra-rich people for bargain prices, for giveaway prices. So then what we have to do is, thousands of us get to know what the problem is, write to government and say, in a nice way, we want it done, and if you don't do it, then don't come knocking on our doors when the next election comes around, because we may be opening our doors to somebody else who is going to pay more attention to us.